that wraps it all up. Like the autopilot, the growing individually. What was the third thing? So you're just gonna leave me hanging like that? Boy, I tell you. Here we go. Hey, welcome to On the Up and Up with Patrick and
Talisha.
And today's episode is all about like the 3 signs that you were growing apart from your spouse, your husband, your wife, your boo thing, whatever you want to call it. But before we get into that, we have shout outs. So thank you guys for interacting with our social media accounts. I am on Instagram and Twitter at I am Pat Ratliff.
And I'm at the Farm D Mommy.
And you can catch our combined official podcast Instagram at Patrick and Talisha on Instagram and Twitter. So I only have a few shout outs. So shout out to Bird, shout out to Ann Magaha 1956. She's always liking our posts. Love her.
All right. So mine are not her little sis. Ariel. Samantha, Kim, Michelle, Jewel, Shauna, and Mrs. Chandler.
Oh, and also Austin Crusher. So he's always liking our posts too. So shout out to bro-in-law Crusher. So I'm outside of the club and you think I'm a punk. I just haven't got any reviews this week. Must not been hitting like episode 7 was, but if y'all haven't heard episode 7 about my entanglement, go back and listen to that episode. Also go back and listen to our episode on gender roles, and also email the show at podcast@patrickandtalisha.com. Rate us, review us on iTunes, leave a 5-star review. You leave us a 5-star review, we will read your review on the show. So our anniversary is tomorrow, August 25th, and that will make 8 years being married and the total of 18 years
being together.
Yeah, that's it.
18 years will come up in November.
Yeah.
So we have been married for 8 years, coming up tomorrow. It is crazy because time passes by so fast. If you are a newlywed and you just got married, I promise you will look up and you'll be celebrating your 8 years too. Patrick, can you remember our wedding day back in 2012?
Yeah, I remember our wedding day is one of the most stressful days of our lives.
Oh my goodness, it was so stressful. It was so great and so emotional as well. But it was also super duper stressful. So being a couple for such a long time, it allowed for us to come into contact with a lot of different people. Also, we have big families. So we had a very large wedding. We had like 250 people at our wedding.
Yeah.
And it was amazing to see the love that everybody poured out for us. But it's also like really hard because you want to talk to everybody and make sure that you hug everybody and love on everybody, and not miss anybody. So I remember that day like so freaking well. It was just a great, great day being surrounded by family and friends. So I'm excited to celebrate 8 years of wedded bliss with you.
Yes. And throughout those 8 years, like, it's so, like, we've been together so long, and one thing that we see out there in the world, and like we said, one of the 5 top entanglements that you will have in your marriage, regardless of how good your marriage is change. And when you go beyond change, one of the biggest things about change is when you start to grow apart. And it's going to happen. There are going to be signs that you are going to be growing apart, and there's signs that you have to be able to recognize. And one thing that we are very conscious of in our marriage is that we are growing together and not growing apart. We think it's like an unwritten rule for us, like growth is mandatory. Mm-hmm. We will not tolerate like
idleness,
just like mediocrity. Yeah. And you're like, hey, what you working on? What you doing? Are you moving forward? Because you're either growing or you're dying as a person, and your marriage is either growing or it's dying. Because if you think nothing's happening, that means it's dying.
Mm-hmm. So growth is mandatory, and like you said, we're growing together is mandatory. So if one of us is going in one place and we're exceeding and excelling, then the other person's gonna be like, hey, bring me up, pull me on, put me on. Or if the other person's seeming uninterested, then the person that is taking that initiative is gonna lend that hand.
You lend the hand. And also, if you're not interested, you better get interested because your partner's doing something.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, you need to care about what your partner's interested in.
Exactly.
Whether you think so or not, if they love shopping and they done picked up a shopping habit, you better love some shopping. If they like baking cookies and it ain't even the cookies that you like to eat, you better jump on board for them cookies.
And if they like to shop, you better get interested because you better be looking at that bank account.
Yeah, you better be searching. Yeah, you better be checking out accounts like, oh, she has picked up or he has picked up a shopping habit. Or like if I get in I might get into some tools or something one day. It's like, whoa, that's an expensive hobby. Yeah, this dude just start buying drills and stuff.
Right.
And another thing about being married for so long or being together so long is when you first get together, like when you first meet that person and you hit that connection with them, you hit that what we call like I'm in love. Like I'm in love. You ain't gonna, even if it's the worst person in the world, you ain't gonna listen. You are blinded by love. That person could be a complete dirtbag and your family's like, that person's not right for you. But I love him. I love him, mama. I love him. I love him, man. I love him, man. I'm gonna marry you, man. And you in that in love feeling. That lasts about like 2 years maybe, right? Especially if you're like older, you just fall in love. They like, boom, sweep you off your feet or anything. All rationality just goes completely out the door. You get married. You're like, oh, this love feeling's going to last forever. Wrong. It's always going to like take a dip in the curve. It's always going to fall off. That feeling's going to go away.
Yeah, it can come back.
Yeah.
But it's going to
like
drop.
All the annoying things that they do, you're not going to be able to even see them. You're going to be like, oh, I love that. Oh, that's so cute how you leave the toilet seat up. I love it. Oh, my goodness. I love how you smack your lips when you chew. Oh, it's adorable. And then after years, you're like, that smacking that they do when they chew. Oh, my gosh. What the freak is that? So it'll slowly start to wear off. And that's when you can start to run into some problems because that feeling is gone. Now you have to like really work on your love because love is an action. Mm-hmm. Love is a verb. Like you have to love somebody. It's just not going to come easily towards you. And when that feeling starts to fade away, that's when we start to see marriages start to get in trouble slowly but surely. Like you won't wake up one day and be like, my marriage is over.
Right.
Like growing apart is a slow death.
So it's like a slow death. And then all of a sudden you're accusing them of no longer being the person that you married. And it's like, well, they were that person before. You just didn't see it because love was so blind. It was like a semi truck and you're trying to see to get over, but you're like, whatever. So in that aspect, you're begging them to change, be back to the same person that I married. Oh my goodness. And they're like, what are you talking about? I've been doing this the whole time. You said you thought it was cute. So in that regards, it's just a matter of knowing that the honeymoon phase is a phase. So how can we work towards helping couples when they're out of that honeymoon phase?
So one of the first signs that your marriage is growing apart or you're growing apart from your spouse is that marriage is on autopilot. And so if you imagine like the pilot, he gets comfortable. He's been driving planes now for a long time. And so when y'all go into the destination, y'all don't know that pilot, he hit that autopilot. He hit that button. That dude just up there sitting and cruising. That's what a lot of us do in our marriage. Like we're like, all right, our marriage is good. Like, we know each other, man. We can get in our routine. A lot of people say, oh, man, my marriage is easy, man. You just go through your day to day. You don't have to put in a lot of effort because you and your spouse, you're on the same page. You're not arguing or anything. Y'all just cruising. It's like, oh, yeah, marriage isn't hard at all because we're quote unquote, like, we're in love still. Like, we love each other.
Yeah.
And so you just keep cruising. The problem with that is when you hit that turbulence and things get a little shaky, it's like, how are you prepared to like repair the damages that have been done? And if you've been cruising on autopilot, you don't even know, like, oh crap, I gotta wake up now and go fix these damages. Because while that's going on, like, your spouse, they could be going through something, but they just not telling you or anything, and y'all just on autopilot. Like, autopilot looks like your marriage being easy. It looks really good, but in reality, it's the first sign that y'all are growing apart.
So what does that look like? It looks like the perfect family on Facebook. You have the sweet family picture. Y'all are saying pleasantries to each other. It looks like whenever your spouse comes home from work, you ask, how was your day? You're so polite. Y'all are taking care of the bills. Everything's paid for.
Career's going well.
It looks like the perfect scenario. But in reality, you ask, how's your day? And then you all disclose your day. And then you get on your phone and she gets on her phone. So it's like there's not really that connection there, but you did ask how that day went, so y'all are good. And y'all aren't fighting, y'all are good. No, y'all aren't really good because y'all aren't taking the time to actually enjoy each other's company. You're instead doing the autopilot thing of, this is what I'm interested in. I'm going to scroll on Facebook or on Instagram, and she can do whatever, or he can do whatever. So
yeah, you really aren't engaging in each other. You're having a conversation, but you aren't engaged in your spouse. Like, it's not like at the beginning or when y'all were dating, you're like, man, I want to know everything about this woman, or I want to know everything about this man. Mm-hmm. I'm so fascinated. Or you didn't take those steps during the dating phase to really get to know that person, and then you get your life going and they get their life going, but y'all's lives aren't together. Y'all aren't one unit. Y'all are operating as a machine.
Yeah.
And you got to understand that marriage is a living, breathing system. It has to be fed. It has to be nurtured. It has to, because it's either going to be growing or it's going to be dying. But you can be like, man, my marriage is fine. Like, we don't fight. We don't get into an argument. Like, our kids are good. We're in the daily routine. But do you really know who your spouse is? Has their feelings changed? How are they feeling? Like I said, how are they feeling about their family issues? Like, how are they feeling in their areas of like spirituality? How are they feeling like physically? How are they feeling emotionally? How are they feeling mentally? They might be in that career that you think is going well, and they might deep down inside, like, man, this isn't what I want to do with my life. Mm-hmm. But you're such on autopilot, like you took your hands off the controls of your marriage, and you just like, I'm cruising, man. This is good.
Right, because people think that, oh, well, I set up this foundation, so my foundation is strong, mm-hmm. so I don't really have to do anything else with the rest of it.
Yeah, like we love each other.
Yeah.
We love each other, but you're not in love anymore. Mm-hmm. You dig? Not super love. Like, it's like, oh, like you're not, it's not pulling you anymore.
Right. It's love that can be shaken. So basically, you're just kind of right there on the middle of the line. So if you're on the middle of the line, you know how people say, is the glass half full or half empty? Well, whenever something that's troubling comes your way, you're right there on that line. So you're more likely to see it as half empty, mm-hmm. rather than half full. So when you're on autopilot, that's what the devil wants you to do. Your brain wants you to be on autopilot. The devil wants you to be on autopilot. When you're on autopilot, unfortunately, you have kind of like a little bit of an emptiness because you don't have those butterflies anymore that you used to have. You're not the giddy schoolgirl that you used to be for your marriage.
Yeah, and you're also, what you're doing is you guys are avoiding conflict. So a lot of people think that because there isn't any conflict in your marriage that, oh, we're good. But we've seen couples where years down the road, they never have a fight, but then all of a sudden they get divorced because no problems are addressed whatsoever. They're not good at addressing the conflict or what's bothering them. They're just, like I said, they're on autopilot. You think it's a positive sign, but it is not a good sign that you guys aren't having conflict, because conflict, like we said, all couples fight, but successful couples repair. And when you guys aren't calling each other out on what the other person's doing, you can't grow from it. There's no growth from that. When we have a argument or a fight, we always come out better. Every single time. We try our best not to be on autopilot because there's just no good discussion, and it's not good communication. Part of good communication is how to overcome conflict and get to a agreement or a decision where both of you, even if you disagree, you both commit to that decision.
So like earlier I said it feels empty, but sometimes it could just feel good. It could feel fine. Like, how someone says, "Oh, how are you doing?" "I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good."
Mm-hmm.
It could feel like that because you don't really have to put a whole lot of work or effort into it. Not a whole lot of brain power, not a whole lot of emotions. It's good. It's not bad. It's fine. And so in that regard, it's just like, okay, well, in love, like you need to have that passion. You need to have that fire, that burning. If you don't have that, then it's good. It's just mediocre. And whenever you think about the school that your kid goes to, you don't want your kid to go to a mediocre school. Or when you think about the doctor that's about to perform your surgery, you don't want a mediocre doctor. So you shouldn't want a mediocre marriage either.
Exactly. It's like in business. It's like, got anything to report? Nothing to report here. Everything's good, but you ain't seeing what's bubbling on the surface because we're just cruising. Like the company's not growing, the company's flat. It's like, all right, we're not losing any money. We're not really making any money, or we're not gaining any new customers. Same thing in your marriage. Like, we're not growing together. And like we said, if you're not growing, what are you doing, baby?
Dying.
All right. So the second sign that you're growing apart from your spouse is when you start to enjoy your individuality as opposed to your companionship in your marriage.
Oh, that's good. So basically, this is the person who is out and about. They're doing all these extracurriculars. They're doing all these different organizations. And they are really making a name for themselves. So now you're out there going to all these extra meetings. You're doing these extra networking events. And you're out. You're going at like 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. And you have all these different friends that you've acquired, and you're just blossoming. You're really developing as a person.
Or you pick up a new hobby, or you suddenly get into something like fitness, and you have this new like inspiration or this new love for fitness and health, and you just start like group fitness. You like join this tribe and you're running, or you're doing CrossFit, or you're like me, I do mixed martial arts or something. It's like, oh, we got this new tribe, and you're losing weight, and you're getting muscle, and you're running faster, and you're looking real good. You walk in there, your spouse like, dang, you look good. What's this? I love the way like you're meal prepping. I love the way you're exercising. That's fantastic, and you're feeling great.
Or maybe you have decided to advance your career or go back to school. Of course, that's going to cause a lot of extra individuality because you have to grow and study and learn all these new things.
Yeah, and at the end of your program, you graduated, you got the degree, you got a new plaque on the wall. Now it's going to blow up your career, and it feels good. Like all this individual growth feels good. And your spouse, your husband and your wife, they might be doing their own thing, their own achievements, their own network, their own health journey, their own academic career. And it feels really good. It's exciting. It's something new in your life, in each other's lives. And both of y'all are climbing the ladder or climbing the mountain, and you guys feel so great apart. So when you're both growing, you can't see that you guys are actually growing apart because individually you both are growing in your own individual, unique way. So it feels great. And you can't see the danger signs of what's about to come.
So what this results in is a lack of intimacy, and not just physical intimacy. We have to include emotional intimacy as well. So there's a lack of connection, a lack of togetherness. And so both of you are thriving in your individual sport, but the team sport of marriage is no longer winning.
Yeah, so when you hit that turbulence because you're on autopilot and you have to make that adjustment, like your organization, it changes, or the pandemic hits and now you have to meet with your team over Zoom and you're the head of the organization, or you got that degree and there's a hiring freeze because of the pandemic. So you can't even go out there and go get that job that you went to school for, or you got injured working out or something. You can no longer work out like you used to. So that hobby's gone, or your spouse gets sick, or even worse, like your kid gets super sick, like they got to be in the hospital or something. And you've been growing so much individually. Now, when it comes back to tending to your family and your marriage, like what do you come back to because you've been growing so far apart individually? So now you're stuck because you didn't see those danger signs because you were blinded by your accomplishments individually. So now that living, breathing system, which is your marriage, the health of that has been neglected and it's deteriorating. And all of a sudden you're in trouble now. And the third sign that you were growing apart from your spouse is that you struggle to brag about your marriage.
So you can brag about your career, your children, your hobbies, that new restaurant you just tried, but you couldn't write a Yelp review about your wife or your husband or on the state of your marriage.
Yeah, because when you first get married, you're all excited. You're like, hey, I just got married. Look at our wedding pictures. Look at the wedding ceremony. It was beautiful. Hey, we just did our honeymoon. It's like, oh yeah, man. So what have you been up to lately? Man, I just got married. Then 1 year passes, 2 year passes, 3 year passes, and you're not talking about your marriage anymore because you put that thing, you lift it off, and now you put that thing on autopilot. Or you went your separate directions, or you've been growing in all these other areas, but all of a sudden you can't brag about the state of your marriage because you've been cruising. You got on autopilot. You got real comfortable. And that's the sign. That's the sign that you can't see, man. And I like what you said about that Yelp review on the state of your marriage. You know what? As coaches, man, that might be a good assignment for the listeners out there. Like, could you even write like a review on the state of your marriage? Would you give it 5 stars? Would you give it, how many stars would you give it? Do you have that same energy for your marriage? Could you type that Yelp review up for your marriage like you do when you're arguing with someone on social media or something, or going at somebody on Twitter or something? Do you have that same passion, that same energy for your husband or your wife? Like, how would you write that down?
Yeah, we should totally give that to the listeners as a challenge. So just like we tell you all, if you give us a 5-star rating and review, that we will read it on the next show, I think that it should be a challenge. So I want you all to write a Yelp review about your, sorry, that was Rowan. He is definitely awake. But anyways, I want you all to write a Yelp review about your husband or wife. If it is a 5-star review, then we will pick the best one and read it on our next episode.
That's right. Email the podcast at podcast@patrickandtalisha.com, the Yelp review about the state of your marriage and just how much you love your husband or how much you love your wife. We want to see it, man. We want to see healthy, strong marriages out there.
All right. And just to put a little twist on things, this review can be written for your future spouse. So I'm challenging you because our single listeners out there, you can participate as well. You can write this review for your future husband or wife.
So what are you supposed to do when you start to notice these signs? What do you do when you notice that, oh man, I've been going on autopilot, or dang man, I've really been enjoying my individual life and haven't been like paying attention to what's going on in the team sport of my marriage, or that, dang, I really can't brag about my marriage. I can't brag about my husband. I can't brag about my wife. What am I supposed to do, man? We may be growing apart. What's the solution? Well, we have that solution for you. And we got like 3 tips that you can implement like right now to start growing closer to your husband or your wife. So the first thing that you can do right now, you don't have to wait. You don't have to go read a book or anything. The first thing you can do right now is you can ask your husband or ask your wife for feedback on how you're performing as their husband or as their wife. So you can be like, hey, honey, like, I'm curious, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate my ability to be a husband or your wife? Like, are you happy on a scale of 1 to 10? What's your happiness right now with me?
Yeah, so it's just like in a company. In a company, they don't really give you feedback often enough. They wait until the end of the year review, and then they decide to say, oh yeah, whenever you did this back in February, blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, with our spouse, let's not do that. Let's give feedback often so that if there are things that maybe we can improve upon to make things go better, we can go ahead and implement those things now.
Exactly. Like, because you're on autopilot. And because you're on autopilot, you're not going to ask for that feedback. It's just like at a job. If you never ask for feedback and all of a sudden they fire you, well, that's on you. You should have been asking for feedback. I know the company fired you, but it's up to you to take that 100% responsibility for your job. You got to do the same thing for your marriage, 100% responsibility for your marriage. You think that you were doing good because it's on autopilot, but you never know. And that's how these people wake up someday and they realize, man, I'm not happy anymore because they never asked for that feedback.
And then on top of that, so whenever you think about the feedback that you get, it's like, okay, am I just getting meets expectations or am I actually exceeding expectations?
Ooh, exactly. Yeah. Yes.
Get your butt off of autopilot and start asking for feedback.
And start giving feedback. Now, don't be going out there giving feedback all willy-nilly because they might be like, I ain't asked for that. But you should take the responsibility to say, hey, like, how am I doing? I really want to know because I want to be the best husband possible or I want to be the best wife possible for you.
Again, please don't go out there giving feedback. We are telling you to ask for feedback on yourself. And then if they decide to say, can you give me some feedback? You can give feedback.
Yeah, don't be out there giving feedback. Like, your performance last night was a little
blonde.
Little blind, It's like, it's a little, that performance was very underwhelming.
Right. And then be like, well, Patrick and Talisha said, give you feedback.
I was like, that is not what we said.
Not what we said.
We said, ask for feedback and it shall be given. Don't give feedback when it has not been asked for.
Yes.
You're not Simon Cowell off American Idol and be like, that performance was absolutely dreadful last night. If this would have been Bible times, you'd have been stoned for that performance.
And then be like, I beg to differ.
And they'd be like, well, differ, because that performance was absolutely horrible. I don't even know how you got on this stage. You'll go straight from autopilot to crashing right into the doggone ground. And if you're scared to ask for feedback verbally, you should do it in an email or do it in a text message like, hey, baby, on a scale of 1 to 10, how am I doing? And if they text you, and let them text you in like emojis or something.
And then you get like a smiley face with the star eyes, or you get a clown.
Yeah.
So the second thing you can do to combat that individual growth is to make a mission statement together. We encourage all of our clients to make a mission statement together. And we don't just tell you to do it. We practice what we preach.
Yeah, we wrote down our own mission statement. We've had this for a while now. We need to put it up on a frame, but when we do our house renovations, yeah, we definitely gonna go out and frame this bad boy. But because we've done it, we know where our true North Star is in our marriage. And when we find ourselves in those rocky waters, we refer back to our mission statement to like find that safe harbor to get back to where we're going to go. Because just because you have a North Star doesn't mean that the waters won't be rough and there won't be storms out there, but we can get back in the right direction and start going to where we want to go in our life and in our marriage. So ours goes a little something like this. So House Ratliff, shout out to Game of Thrones, lives by faith, honor, legacy, togetherness, sacrifice, growth, and enthusiasm. Our true strength comes from working together and eliminating selfishness, frustration, impatience, criticism of each other, and mindlessly staring at our phones. We are intentional about our direction in life and promise to be open with our struggles, facing them head on through the power of prayer. We promise to faithfully rely on God and His promises. We will make a difference for others by sharing our testimony. We affirm that we will fill our relationship with love, positivity, and laughter till death do us part. So when we read that, we be like, all right, baby, we can face anything. Let's go. That's our mission. All right. Get back on track. Let's find our North Star again, read our mission. And so that's how we come together and stop growing apart. Like I said, your life might be being great individually. You might be growing in all other individual areas, but that's just your pseudo spouse. Your real spouse is the one that you're married to. Your real spouse is that one that you made that covenant with before God and all the other witnesses at your marriage and your ceremony. So that's the one that you really need to be married to, not those pseudo spouses.
All right. So the third thing is to pray together. Like Patrick read in our mission statement, we have to refer back to prayer. So we're saying this one as the third one, but it is definitely not the last one. It is the first one. Pray together. Pray with your spouse. Pray for your spouse. But most importantly, pray with your spouse. So yesterday, Patrick and I were early enough to church to be able to attend Sunday school. Hallelujah. And in Sunday school, Sister Natasha was giving us the word, and Justin, he brought it back and he was like, Satan, he has dominion over the air. And so whenever you say those words and you're praying out loud and you're praising out loud, you are defeating him. And so whenever, not only are you saying those words, but your spouse is saying those words. So now y'all are doing it together. Y'all are giving the devil the business. Y'all are teaming up on the devil because y'all are exercising in the sport of marriage, the team sport of marriage.
Oh, Sister Ratliff, testify. Oh, woo, yeah. It's really like when you guys pray together, man, it's dang near impossible to like grow apart when you guys like have that intimacy with God together, man. Look, man, and you'll get that feedback, man, whatever, like that wraps it all up, like the autopilot, the growing individually, the lack of bragging about your spouse, putting more energy into other things. Like prayer is like you are welding together your marriage with like super fire. And it ain't coming apart, buddy.
Amen.
So to wrap things up, 3 signs that you were growing apart from your spouse is number 1, like you're on autopilot. You're just cruising, you're on cruise control. Number 2, you are flourishing as individuals, but not flourishing in your marriage. And number 3 is you're not bragging about your marriage or your spouse anymore like you were when you first got married.
And to remedy that, you want to, 1, ask for feedback. 2, combine your missions, make that mission statement together. And 3, pray together. All right, so y'all don't forget to send in your Yelp review for your spouse, your future spouse, for the state of your marriage, and that will be sent to podcast@patrickandtalisha.com. Again, we will read our favorite one on our next episode. And hey, that's pretty much it for this night. If you have heard a snoring baby, his name is Rowan.
We get this podcast done by any means necessary, and we will catch you guys next week.
Thank you for listening to On the Up and Up with Patrick and Talisha. For access to all of our episodes, please subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and wherever you listen to our show. Leave us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes, and we will give you a shout out on our next episode. Stay connected with us on Twitter and Instagram at I am Pat Ratliff and at the Farm D Mommy. Thanks again for listening, and we will see you next week. God bless.